All right, good morning, financial professionals. I am Preston French, Regional Vice President for E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to the Brew Call today. Brew is short for Building Relationships Every Week. Thank you for tuning in with us today. For those of you joining Brew for the first time, welcome. We'd like to start the Brewcast by celebrating today's national days. The first one is National Nike Air Max Day. So if you've got a pair of them Nike Air Maxes in the closet, pull them out, dust them off, put them on, wear them around today. Second one is National Little Red Wagon Day. And if I guess everyone, I guess in their lifetime has probably had a little red wagon.
Yep.
If you still got one, you can probably get about $2,000-3,000 for that thing on eBay. I think they're considered an antique. So with that, today we're wrapping up our March lineup of buy sales, and our guest for today is Phil Haug, Senior VP of Sales of E4, to discuss prospecting and closing the sale with buy sale opportunities. Phil, thank you for joining us today. So, Phil, we've had a great month of March in the brew calls and discussing buy sale opportunities around business owners. We've got kind of in depth on some conversations, topics, even had a few case studies. What I would like to do today for the last and final buy sale opportunities is basically let's take it back to the basics, right? I guess one of the most decorated NFL head coaches of all time is Vince Lombardi. And after every Super Bowl Vince Lombardi won, the next season, first day of practice, he'd be in front of his team, he'd hold up a football, and he'd say, "Gentlemen, this is a football. Let's go back to the basics." So that's what I want to do today. So first question I have for you, if we're going back to the basics, right? What can advisors do? And again, I know this is going to be very basic, but I think it will help, especially if you haven't done it in a while. What are some ways to identify buy sell opportunities in your existing book of business?
Yeah, for sure. No, and I love the Lombardi or story, or I was gonna say analogy, but it was actually what he do already. He would start out every practice and say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." You can never assume that everybody knows what that is, even though if you're coaching in the NFL, you'd probably assume that those guys have seen the football, right? But speaking back to the basics, when we get into the business, a lot of times, we've all been there where it's worked so good we stop doing it, right? And you can get success, so we can be the victim of our own success. But when I'm looking at the buy-sell agreements, the business owners, those types of things, that the word opportunities, starts super simple, and a lot of times it's just right underneath your nose. So one of the things is, if you're an existing advisor, is look at your book of business either as, if you're a commercial agent, if you're a financial advisor, if you're an insurance agent, if you're a wealth advisor, look for the business owners, right? So they own the S corps. If you're a tax advisor, you know how they file their taxes. So the LLCs, the partnerships, those types of things, you're going to know them, right off the top of your head. They've identified themselves as obviously the business owner. Now, when you get into it, we need to look at if you're an existing advisor, look through your policies to see existing buy sells that are out there, right? So take our world, we're on the 5-year anniversary of some pretty crazy times, and the whole world kind of flipped upside down and in a lot of different circles, and everything got upset. Businesses rocketed in values, employees moved around. I mean, our business landscape today is completely different than it was 5 years ago. So what the individual set up 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago may not be applicable or may not be sufficient. So just reviewing the existing buy sells that you have in force is definitely an easy place to start. So like the definitely, like, this is a football, is start with the people that already have a buy sell agreement in place. Odds are pretty good that it needs to be updated. And again, like the easiest, if we're going to talk sales, the easiest sale is somebody that already owns it. You don't have to sell the concept of them buying the insurance policy. They've already done it. They just need to make sure that the plan is properly funded.
I agree. So let's say that's where we start. So we've identified the opportunity, whether it's an existing client or let's say it's a prospect that we want more of their business, right?
Yep.
What's the best way, once we've identified the opportunity, what's the best way to approach the client or even that situation?
So if you've identified, well, I shouldn't say if, but when you've identified the business owner, business owners, key people, we've been given a gift in the sense that, a good, the term advisor comes out and gets used a lot. But Preston, an advisor does what? They advise.
Advise.
Yeah,
Correct.
we're
Yeah.
in the business of advising, right? We're not in the business of selling. We're not in the business of forcing. We're not in the business of ramming stuff down people's throats. We're in the business of advising. We've been given a gift with the Supreme Court's ruling on the Connolly case, and you can come in from an advisory and a consultative capacity to come in and say, "Hey, Preston, I know that you own a business. I know that you've got business partners. I'm making it a point to reach out to all the business owners that I know and review their buy-sell agreements in light of a recent Supreme Court ruling." And a lot of times, at that point, you're coming in and you're offering advice. You're offering to consult with that business and potentially identify a problem, right? The
Yeah.
second thing is kind of promoting our own, E4s on a shirt, right? It's on your background. Promoting some of the tools we have. If you go on our website, we have a risk calculator. We've taken the CSO mortality tables and we've built out a probability of business owners passing away before they were the age of 65. Little bit of it can be daunting. We recently ran through all of the partners ran through putting in our age on the calculator, and the number that came back was it was like 70% probability that one of us would pass away before they're 65, which is, kind of scary. But it gets attention. So whether you as the advisor want to come in and look at it and give yourself that motivation to go and make those conversations and make those contacts, or if it's just a soft sell to come in and say, "Hey, you know what? In light of the Connolly case, the whole reason that, and I think you've had a couple people come on and talk. We've had some individuals over the past several months. The whole Connolly case hinged on the fact that they didn't review the plan. So
Right.
if you as the advisor are coming in and just offering a review of the plan, that is going to take a huge step for them being quote unquote compliant with what their documents say. So an easy, soft advisory approach is, hey, in light of recent Supreme Court decisions, I'm making it a point to reach out to all my business owners and review their current buy-sell agreement. And they're going to tell you two things, Preston. They're going to say, "That's awesome, I've got one, I need you to look at it," or they're going to say, "I don't have one, what are you talking about?" And either one of those, I like those answers.
I agree 100%. So let's say you say that to the client, they say one of the two things. So let's say they agree to meet, right? The next step is you mentioned the risk calculator, some of the resources we have. I guess before that step, what are some key questions to ask that business owner when we're talking about buy sales, right? What do the advisors need to gather as far as information, whether it's policy name, date, share, what would you yourself ask the business owner if he were sitting in front of you and you get ready to either review or look at doing a buy sell for him and his partner or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's a really, really good question. So the most, we talk about this all the time, Preston, but what's the most valuable commodity we have?
Ourselves, the people, right?
In time, right?
Yeah,
Like
correct.
I can't replicate, duplicate, or recapture time, right? So
Yep.
I need to make sure that I'm hyper efficient with my appointment, but I also have to make sure that I'm not moving so fast I miss things. Okay. So I get the yes. I've approached the business owner, I've identified them, I've come to them and I've said, I've had my opener, they've agreed to meet. Now I'm sitting down. What I'm trying to get out of them is obviously the basic demographic information. So I'm getting the vitals, I'm getting the date of birth, I'm getting the information. So, just basics. Then I'm asking them for a copy of their buy-sell agreement. I'm asking them if they have one. I'm asking them for a copy of their insurance policies if they currently have it funded, if they have one, right? And then I'm asking them for 2 years tax returns. And the reason I'm asking for 2 years tax returns is because with that information, we have several carrier partners of ours that will come in and do an informal business valuation. So with the key financial data, the 2 years tax returns, and some basic P&L stuff, I'll be able to get a business valuation. If they have an existing buy sell, I want to review it. I want to compare what they currently have. So I'm doing two things at once. I'm running the business valuation on one side and I'm reviewing what they've got. Now, I can't come back to them and make a recommendation because typically the buy-sell agreement covers we are going to pay each other's decedents, beneficiaries, upon an agreed upon value. Well, usually the value is a percentage of the value of the business. So I've got to get that business that informal business valuation to come back. And I'm going to use that to go in and say, hey, Preston, you and I are business partners. We've agreed to a 50-50 split. We've agreed to, if something happens to either one of us, then I'm going to make sure that your spouse, I buy your spouse out and vice versa. We put this agreement together and the business is worth $1 million. We've worked so hard and done well, and now it's worth 5. So, we need to update it. But another one that gets overlooked, right? So everybody talks about death, right? What's more likely to happen to the business owner?
Probably come disabled before death.
Yeah, it gets hurt, get sick or hurt and can't work. Okay.
Correct.
Disability buyout is, we sometimes will get the horse blinders on and we talk life insurance, right? So what we know, it's where we go, it's what we do. But disability buyout is a huge, huge gaping hole in almost every buy-sell agreement that I've ever read that's prepared by a qualified licensed attorney specifically has a DI buyout. Okay. Now, why is that important? Whose definition of disability are we going to use?
It's a good question.
Right? Mine or yours?
Probably mine, but we'll go
Right.
with you.
Yeah, but I don't want to use yours. I want to use mine, and they might not agree. Now, would it make sense for us to have the insurance company have a unified agreement on disability?
Yes.
Yeah. So just by buying the business overhead, the disability buyout, you can avoid a fight. You can avoid the problem, which you're trying to avoid to begin with, by even just having the disability language be the one that defines the disability, right? So,
Sure.
the value, the tax returns get me the valuation up capacity. The existing plan lets me review it. I can see if there's gaps, what there typically is. Like I said, I've yet to see what, I can count on one finger out of all the buy-sell agreements that I've reviewed that actually had a disability policy in place. And a lot of times, I would love it the best case scenario, and it might sound contrary to belief, is I'd love to come in and say, hey, you know what? Your language on this thing is proper. You're properly funded and you have all the things you need in place. You did everything right. You've continued to maintain it the right way. No changes necessary, right? That's the goal, right?
Yeah, I agree. So we've talked about gathering all the information. You've hit on some of the tools and resources, right? So how can E4 and an RVP or your RVP, if you're an advisor with E4, assist? I want to ask you, so you brought up the risk calculator for the business owner. So I think you went in, talked about that a little bit. Remind me, that is something any advisor that is, I guess, signed up with E4 has access to through our dashboard, correct?
Yeah, yep. So you can go under the E4.insurance site and go to the dashboard, and I think it's under marketing. We've got our calculators, and there is a business partner risk calculator that goes in there, and it's quite simple. You just put in the business owner's age and I think sex.
Yep.
And it'll calculate and tabulate the likelihood. Now, that's the face. It's sales concepts. I'm sorry, it's the sales concept side of things. We have so many resources on the website. It's hard to keep track of all of it, right?
I agree.
It's a good problem to have. So yeah, it's under sales concepts. But we've inputted all of the CSO mortality tables and put it in, and it runs the calculations in the background. So that you can go in, and again, use that it's a very effective tool to maybe get the attention of the business owner, because you know what? We all feel like we're all 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? Superman wears Phil Haug underwear, right? But the reality of it is that I'm not bulletproof and something could happen to me. So it's just using the tables to show that stuff. So
I agree. And another thing you brought up when we're talking about tools and resources, you talked about the carriers that we have, the informal business valuation, right? So when we're talking with, I think we had Dan on the second week of March, and even Lincoln on talking about the Conley versus IRS, right? That informal business valuation. How pertinent or important can that be when you're looking at doing a buy sell for partners?
It's everything. I mean, how
I
important
agree.
it is. Without it, you kind of don't have anything. You have a in a lot of cases, you have a multi-million-dollar asset. Um, Most of the carriers that we're dealing with will take that valuation to create financial suitability for using as a valuation. Now, if I were to call my local business broker and sell my business, you know, I don't know if that's, I'd maybe go and hire a professional, right? Get somebody to specifically value the business because there gets to be nuances and intricacies. But for the purpose of what we're needing to do to protect the business, it's it's everything. You can't do anything without it.
I agree. I mean, if you're not using that and you're looking at a buy sell, I mean, it's just a blind guess at what the value of the business is and how much insurance we're putting on the business owner or his partner, correct?
Oh yeah, you're just totally and you're winging it, and then you're still having to go in and you're having to you are still going to have to create some financial justification on why you can't just send the insurance company a 3, 4, 5, $10 million application and expect them to say okay cool run with it, right? Like you're going to have to justify financially on a business case why we're doing this, right? So the valuation is going to do it. The other thing is I'm sure you've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. We go and look at our portfolio, our 401k, our stocks. We look at the value of the businesses that we've bought through shares and equities in our retirement accounts, right? If
Yep.
I'm a business owner, which I am, right? I'm making a threefold investment: my time, my energy, and my money, right? If I'm
Yep.
invested in the stock market, it's just my money, right? But if I've picked North American or Principal or Nationwide or any of the carriers that offer these informal valuation services, not a bad idea. Every couple of years, every 3 years, go have another one done and use the same one because now I can track the value. I've got a template, right? I can figure out is that business value increasing, shrinking, because what we do is we get stuck in the weeds, right? We get tied up in the day to day of running the business. We forget to actually run the business.
I agree.
So so
I agree
it
100%.
serves two very positive benefits to the business owner.
Yeah. So the last question I have for you, you kind of just hit on it, but let's say everything that you've told me, I've put in my sales Bible. I've done it. I've made the sale, right? I've made the buy sale for the business owner partners, whatever the case may be. After that, how often should I touch that client or business moving forward and why?
Well, I actually want to take a step back before I get to that, right? Um,
Okay.
because you asked the question about where can the RVP and where can E4 help, right? So one
Sure.
of the things I said early on was as a business owner, the most important and most valuable thing we have is time, right? So the client says yes, now what?
Right.
Right? And a lot of times now, actually, it can be a little bit daunting. Lean on us, right? We have software programs, we have underwriting capacity, we have programs like RGA where we actually have a direct relationship with the reinsurance company. There's 11 insurance companies that are bound by this decision of RGA. So we can informally underwrite, we can submit an application to them. They're going to come back and make an offer. And then 11 companies are, so if they come back and say, hey, we think Preston is going to be standard non-tobacco, now we can get that offer. We can go to all of those 11 companies that are bound by that offer, right? So we want to make things super simple and super easy. I don't want you as an agent filling out 11 applications. I don't want us looking at 50 different, you know, if I give you a spreadsheet of 20 different quotes, right? Where do I start? Right?
Yeah.
Using the informal process, using the quick quote process, using the RGA process can make things so much simpler for your business owner. So you actually make it an enjoyable process, which leads to the next question. If you've had it be super clunky, right? the labs cancel, the carrier wants all kinds of information, the valuation isn't done properly, they need tax return. Like we skip steps and we try to piece it all together. You should be getting together with that business owner every about 2 to 5 years, 2 years as quickly, 5 years is pushing it, right? But
Yeah.
guess what? They're not going to want to talk to you because the last time they saw you, it was a very uncomfortable. It was a
Yeah.
pain in the butt, right?
Yeah.
So your next meeting is going to be easy to schedule if the last one you had was enjoyable to hold. So if you have used E4, use the RVP, use the RGA process, use the valuations, make it as streamlined as possible. The following up and the maintaining is not that hard. 2 to 5 years, right? Fast growing
Yeah.
businesses, I probably do it every 2. Steady Eddie businesses, I'm doing every 5. And then you're gonna have to have the radar up. And when Connolly Part 2 comes along, Supreme Court gets in session every year. Congress meets every year. The president has executive orders. Stuff changes, right? So
Oh yeah.
so it's going to be that little asterisk on the end, 2 to 5 years asterisk, unless something regulatory or legislatively or legally changes, then I would say meet with them immediately.
I agree 100%. Well, and you talk about everything changing from, let's just say, the legislation standpoint. I mean, even for a business owner, they're super busy. I think you would agree there's so much that changes in a business from 12 to 24 months. It would make perfect sense to touch that customer at least 12, 24 months to make sure there isn't a new partner, something hasn't changed, they haven't acquired more business, whatever the case may be, capital, whatever. I think it's safe to say 12 to 24 months, just reaching out, making sure, reviewing, because all life insurance, you put it in place, and I hate to say you almost forget about it, but you forget about it. So if
You
they're
do.
not, yeah, I mean, it's the only service work you really have on a life policy is on the worst day of someone's life, right? Outside of that, there's really no service work that's involved. So there's a lot to forget. So I think it's pertinent for someone that places a case like that to at least touch it every 12 to 24 months, make sure there's no changes.
Make sure that people get divorced, right? So I
Yes,
mean that
spouses,
happens.
spouses die. I
Spouses.
mean,
I just read that Gene Hackman, right? He had all of his stuff done. Okay. He had all of his trust documents drawn up. He had all of his estates done. Guess what? Every single person that he listed already died,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So because it hadn't been reviewed, now there's $80 million at stake, right? And it's crazy to see people come out of the woodwork when that's it. Now, personally, that's a headache. Imagine running a business, right? Now you're involving your business, your employees, something that you're passionate about, and then you've got your spouse and your kids and your family. Like it is a 360-degree, all-encompassing. This is something that can't be avoided, right? So it's
sure.
important to make sure that those things are up to date. But the other part is again, for example, we talked about the disability buyout, right? So somebody who's in their 30s and 40s and 50s, yeah, that's something that's a very important piece of it. Well, if you've made it, okay, you're in your
Yeah,
60s, long-term care can be offered to the business. It's not a buy-sell agreement. It's nothing that we've talked about, but it's a service, it's a solution, it's a massive risk. Now, the business can offer long-term care to the owner, officers, and their spouses. It's a tax deduction for the business, and there's ways where the people, the employee and the owners can receive it tax-free, right?
yeah,
So I look at a good advisor as a non-equity partner. A good advisor is really a non-equity partner in the business. They're sitting at the table at least once a year, making sure that everything's being set up and managed and maintained the right way. Like I said, best case scenario is you have a cup of coffee, everything's where it's supposed to be, reassurance that everything was done right, you've done your job, and you move on to the next thing,
I agree.
right?
Because
So
yeah, because again, like I said, if you're not touching them every 12 to 24 months, you can guarantee your competition's trying to call on
I was just gonna say,
them.
your best client is your competition's best prospect,
Absolutely. Couldn't
right?
agree more. Couldn't agree
So,
more. So keeping that touch point is very valuable. So
mhm.
with that, Phil, I have no more questions. Thank you for joining us today, being our
Yeah.
guest. speaker, if you will. So with that, we're going to wrap up. I'd like to remind everyone that today's brew call and our entire library are recorded and shared on the brew page on our website. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with all the brewcasts. They're released every Wednesday. Next week, the brew will be live at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. April's lineup will focus on key person and executive benefits. Steve Walker, our E4's VP of Institutional Accounts, and Brad Newcomb, Regional Vice President, with John Hancock. And I hope I said his last name correct. If he didn't, I'm sure he will. We'll discuss how business owners can reward their top talent beyond compensation to keep them from seeking opportunities elsewhere. We just talked about competition, so
Yep.
I think you would agree that if you're worried about competition, so is the business owner. So you want to tune in for that. Again, finding top talent is hard enough. We want to help show you how to keep them feel valued. So, Phil, again, thank you. Thank you for everyone tuning in today, and we will see you next week on The Brew.
Appreciate it, Preston. Thanks for having me in. And
Yep.
we'll also want to mention too, from an E4 hat, we have the third Thursday at 3, which is a new program that it's all sales focused. It's diving deeper into it. Coming in, we talked about, we've had the retirement R&D calculator, and then we had business income for business owners. So I'll be on the lookout for that too, in addition to the brew telecast as well. So
yep, just another resource and value we provide. Correct.
That's right.
Great, perfect. Phil, again, thank you, and we'll see all you next week.
Thank you for having me.